Welcome back, everybody, to another episode of the Depot Dive. I'm Ross McCorkle, and above me here on the screen is Joe Clark. And just like we said last week, what a difference 1 week can make. We have once again fallen into that scenario, unfortunately on the wrong side of the equation. This time, Pittsburgh Steelers lost in kind of embarrassing fashion to the Los Angeles Chargers on the West Coast, on the road. 25-10, and really it was 25-3 if you exclude the garbage time touchdown at the end of the game. Not a great look, and a whole lot to talk about this week for us, and unfortunately probably not a lot of positive things to talk about, but we will discuss and recap that Chargers game, and we'll kind of take a deep dive into the offense and whether or not it's fixable. Imagine that. A few weeks ago it was the defense, and now it has flipped to the offense. And then we'll finish up the show previewing the Bengals game and answering some listener questions. Joe, before we dive in, how are things on your end?
Doing pretty well. How about you?
I'm good. Our bet, I think, did we both end up taking Darius Slay?
We
And so
did.
we
It hit.
both it hit. I think in the private in our chat right before the game, I switched my answer to Dante Jackson, so I don't want to take full credit. I got cold feet there, but yeah, it was Darius Slay that ended up exiting the game first, and this one was actually a little bit worse than the rest of them because he didn't return, which we'll talk about the injury report here later in the show, but. Where do you want to begin with the Chargers? I think Aaron Rodgers is probably the right spot.
Yeah, that's what I was gonna say too. It was just a bad game all around from Rodgers. I mean, early on, he didn't look comfortable. He kind of had happy feet early, and it was pretty noticeable even before, the misses started piling up. He just didn't look comfortable all game, and I don't know what like the byproduct of that was, but I mean, the offensive line allowed a little bit more pressure than they had been in recent weeks, but he was missing receivers, he was missing throws that he usually makes and should make, and the offense really just stalled out because of that and couldn't get anything going all day.
Yeah, he's missing high, he's missing low. When he finally got the ball to the receivers, there were drops, and so it's not all his fault. There were some, really nobody was helping him out other than maybe Jalen Warren and maybe, I don't know, Pat Fryermuth. I guess Darnell Washington had a nice tough catch, but other than that, he wasn't getting a lot of help. I mean, Jonnu Smith, and that one was more on Rodgers, but it did hit him in both hands. He could have caught it. It was a harder play than it needed to be, but Calvin Austin III, two drops, one of which went for a interception, and so really Rodgers wasn't getting help anywhere, and he was having the worst game of the season and arguably one of the worst games of his career. I think it was tracking to be the worst game of his career until that garbage time drive kind of salvaged the box score slightly, even if it wasn't very meaningful. So yeah, all around resulted in an awful day for the offense. I think they had a total of, they had a total of 221 yards, and 65 of those came on the garbage time drive. I think Aaron Rodgers in particular only had, how many passing yards did he end with? 161,
161.
and 65 of those were on that garbage time drive. So he was less than 100 yards on the day when it actually mattered. One touchdown, two interceptions. So yeah, the offense straight up stunk. We're going to discuss kind of if the offense is fixable in the next segment. So I guess we'll just continue on with the Chargers recap. And I mean, Jalen Warren only ended up getting 14 carries, 14 carries. Caleb Johnson had two. And for some reason, Kenneth Gainwell actually outsnapped him, which was a bit of an odd decision on the Steelers' part. Part of that was because they were, playing from behind and they were forced to kind of spread the offense out. And, Kenneth Gainwell's maybe more of a receiver type in that regard. But I think Jalen Warren has proven himself a pretty good third down back over the years. So that one was curious to me.
Yeah, I mean, Warren did have the snap lead until Gainwell kind of played the garbage time drive, but I don't really understand the Steelers' resistance to playing Jalen Warren on third downs. I know, like Tomlin said, well, he needs a break at some point. Well, then I don't know. I would give Kenneth Gainwell maybe one of those early down snaps. They gave Caleb Johnson early down snaps, and then why don't you give Kenneth Gainwell then an early down snap if you want him to see the field? Because I think, Jalen Warren seeing the field on third down is one of the things that could help this offense improve. I mean, he makes guys miss pretty much as good as anybody in the NFL, whether it's breaking tackles or evading defenders. So when, as we've talked about, when this is a team that's not going to be taking their shots on third down and will just check it down and throw short of the sticks, then having a guy like Jalen Warren in there, I think, is a lot more valuable. And the Steelers just, I don't know, they don't seem to want to do that and keep Kenneth Gainwell on third downs. It just doesn't make a whole lot of sense to me.
Yeah, I think Warren is, I mean, arguably the best player on the Steelers right now, certainly the best player on the offense right now. And might be playing better than most of the defense, too, at this point. So this is a guy you need on the field as much as possible, and they've kind of failed at that this past week. And, they kind of gave the typical excuse of, oh, well, we didn't have that much snaps to go around. And it's kind of a chicken and the egg thing, right? It's like, well, do you not have enough snaps to go around because you're not giving Warren the ball enough on these early downs to set yourself up well for third down? It's like, yeah, I don't know what to really make of that. I guess to an extent what the coaches are saying is correct, but you do have to wonder if Warren's a bigger part of the game plan. Is that even a talking point? So hopefully we see that corrected. And this isn't the first time this has happened this year either, where Warren inexplicably didn't get kind of as many snaps as you would think. And so hopefully it bounces back this week. I think the offensive line is another unfortunate talking point for this team. It looked like they had kind of turned the corner this year, just in the fact that I think it was over the first 2 games, they allowed 7 sacks. Over the next 4, they had only allowed 2. And then unfortunately, over the last 3, they've allowed 3 each game for a total of 9. And so things have kind of taken a turn for the worse again. We're seeing some of the same stuff from Broderick Jones, where he's just getting beat and he's not throwing his punches and using his hands properly. And it's just been ugly for the offensive line in general. Even Troy Fautanu, who hadn't allowed a sack all season, allowed his first sack on what ended up being a safety. Again, you can maybe argue Aaron Rodgers drifted into that and could have avoided it, could have thrown the ball away. But regardless, Troy Fautanu did get beat on that play. And so I think it's kind of all combined, and really nothing went right on the offense, and it kind of combined into what we saw overall there. So, I mean, what we've talked a lot about the offense. What about the defense, Joe?
Yeah, I mean, they got pressure. That was the big thing coming into the game. The Chargers offensive line was banged up. They got 5 sacks against Justin Herbert. And honestly, they didn't do a terrible job against them. Kamani Vidal had a few chunk gains, but I mean, they only allowed 3.7 yards per carry. I think their biggest issue was Brendan Eccles had his hands full in the slot with Ladd McConkey. He had a couple of big plays that kind of changed the tone of the game. Um, I mean, losing Slay, I guess, kind of hurt a little bit, but James Pierre came in and played pretty well. It just kind of, you're losing some of your depth there, and you have to play a little more, I guess, a little more cautious. Um, I mean, missed tackles were once again an issue. I mean, they've been an issue all year, but all in all, I thought the defense outside of Eccles played, a pretty good game. I mean, TJ Watt didn't get enough pressure, I think. I think that's maybe he was closing in, but then Herbert was able to make some tough throws. He was maybe a second late on a few of those plays. But I mean, Alex Highsmith played well. I mean, Pierre played well. I think Keanu Benton played pretty well. He had a sack, he had 2 tackles for a loss. There's a few times maybe against the run where he kind of got out of his gap, and that allowed a bigger run than should have happened. But for the most part, I mean, I don't really have too many qualms with the way the defense played. I think just the losing the turnover battle and the complete lack of inability to do anything on offense was what doomed them.
Yeah, I agree. The defense did, I thought, play well. I mean, the one thing about Darius Slay going down is Ramsey had to shift up to wide corner a little bit. They did end up kind of putting Pierre in that spot, and like you said, he played well. But right away we saw, I mean, I think I talked about, I was kind of hoping that they would have traded for a corner at the deadline, just so that they could keep Ramsey for sure at safety if something happened with one of the top 3 corners. And we already saw the repercussions of that a little bit when Slay went down. But luckily Pierre played well, and they have since signed Asante Samuel Jr., which we'll talk about in a little bit here as well. But yeah, the defense, it's a day where they couldn't get any kind of complimentary football going. And, we've seen what that's done to the defense over the last few years. When the offense can't possess the ball, the defense gets tired, and eventually the dam kind of breaks at the end of the game. And that's kind of what happened here. wasn't just the offense either. Special teams let him down. Chris Boswell missed a field goal uncharacteristic. What was that, like a 46-yard something? It's a 40-something yard that he missed there, which is uncharacteristic of Boswell. You had Keyshawn Williams muffing a punt. All of this kind of just combined for the perfect storm to where the defense eventually was going to have to break there, and they did at the end of the game. So the only other thing, I guess, is talking about the jumbo package I wanted to touch on, because Isaac Seumalo was out, though it kind of looks like he's trending to play this weekend. But with him out, the first snap of the game went to Andres Pete at left guard, and Spencer Anderson remaining as the kind of tackle-eligible jumbo guy. But a false start by Pete switched that up immediately. They did end up doing the jumbo package thing a few times where Pete played guard and Anderson kicked out to the tackle eligible. And, there's an NFL rule where if you're tackle eligible, you can't go right back to guard the next play. And so Pete had the snap where there was the tackle eligible, and then one more before Anderson would ultimately return to left guard. So that's how they were operating the jumbo package. I know there were a lot of questions about that, and I thought it worked okay. I think Arthur Smith may have even said something about that today.
Yeah, I think he praised how Pete's been behind the scenes, and he said he thought the jumbo package went well. But yeah, I mean, I think it's obviously better with Isaac Seumalo in there, but it worked better than, I thought it would. It was kind of interesting to see them use Pete in that spot. Obviously the false start was bad, and he only played limited snaps, but other than that, nothing really poor stood out on that end. And it does look like Seumalo is going to play this week, so hopefully they get back to normal there and can utilize the jumbo package at the same efficiency that they were earlier this season.
Yeah, I think that, Andres Pete is a serviceable guy to step in there, but the big thing to really talk about here is rotating guards next to Broderick Jones. The best idea is that kind of setting him back further, because, communication across the offensive line is important. And Broderick Jones obviously had, I would say, probably his worst game since week 1 or 2, and he was really struggling this year. And I think some of that probably you can attribute to the fact that he was playing next to, for one, not Isaac Seumalo, but for two different guys at multiple points throughout the game, and that's difficult. So hopefully Seumalo coming back provides some stability. I think that's all for recapping the Chargers game. Hopefully they can flush that one. They're going to need to, because they've now lost 3 of the last 4. They're 5-4. They're only a game ahead of the Baltimore Ravens. They still isn't it just one game ahead?
Yep.
And they play the Ravens twice, so it's starting to feel a lot like 2024 to me, where, everyone thought, oh, the Steelers are going to run away with the division. And of course, it was a little later in the season when that was being said last year. But already the Ravens are 1 game back. You're already talking about Joe Flacco coming back and maybe giving the Bengals a chance to compete in the division. It's not impossible at this point, especially if they win this weekend against the Steelers. And so it's starting to feel eerily like 2024 in that regard. But I wanted to just take a deeper dive on the offense in general. Is this thing fixable? Joe, I'll give you the first word.
I certainly think it is. I mean, the Chargers defense is kind of built to take away a lot of what the Steelers did or do and have done with some of their shorter throws. But some of the throws were there, and Aaron Rodgers just didn't make them. I mean, you talk about the deep ball to Metcalf. You talk about the play to Jonnu that got overturned. Even the play to Calvin Austin, the ball bounced off his hands for the pick. I mean, there were throws there. And I mean, maybe I have more faith in Rodgers than I should, but I think he's going to, I mean, yeah, it's been back-to-back kind of rough games from him, but I think he has the capability to bounce back and kind of, excuse me, and, start making those throws again. We saw him do it earlier in the year. He turned it on more in the second half of the Jets last year too. So I think he can rebound, and I think the offense can get back. I mean, I do think playing Jaylen Warren on third downs is kind of going to be key to help this team's third down conversion percentage. But I do think, the throws were there. If Rodgers just starts executing, I do think the offense can kind of be fixed.
I agree to an extent, but I'll, just for the sake of giving the full argument here, I'll give the doomer side of things. And I think last year we saw with the Russell Wilson layups and 3-pointers, I think, was it the Ravens on Hard Knocks that said that in their team meeting? Russell Wilson's just layups and 3-pointers. And Sure enough, down the stretch of the season, once the first team kind of exposed how to stop the Steelers' offense, everybody was doing that same thing, and the Steelers' offense just sputtered to a complete halt by the end of the season, and that extended into the playoffs as well. And so there is a little bit of a worry in my head that that could happen again this year. It seems like teams are starting to take away what works for the Pittsburgh offense, which is the quick passing game, the stuff maybe at or behind the line of scrimmage and relying on yak. Seems like teams are starting to figure out how to scheme around that. And certainly we saw a lot of DK Metcalf being double covered. Aaron Rodgers even said something along the lines of, other guys have to get open because we can't get the ball to DK Metcalf if they're able to double cover, and they're going to double cover if nobody else is getting open. And so, what does that say? Does that mean, they have their full complement of weapons. It's not like there's no cavalry coming really. I guess you could argue that Roman Wilson might get more involved, and I guess this is a good time to, no. We'll get to that in a second because I want to continue with my doomer argument here. But, the Steelers have a bottom 10 passing offense right now. And if you really look over the last 2 weeks, it's trending even worse than that. They could find themselves with a bottom 5 passing offense. And that's not something that anyone expected when they brought in Aaron Rodgers, certainly not when they traded for DK Metcalf. And so, we talk about this every year, but what is the identity of this Steelers offense? I don't even really know, and I don't even know if they know. I think they kind of know what they want to be, but that seems to not be working anymore. And so, they're in a tricky spot. Rodgers has the third lowest intended air yards per attempt in the league, only ahead of Dylan Gabriel and Kyler Murray. And so, the deep ball's not working well, so they're not finding the chunk plays. I think our Dave Bryan just posted an interesting stat on Twitter that I don't have pulled up, but more or less saying that the Steelers are only second worst to the Philadelphia Eagles in terms of 10-plus yard plays this season, a very low number of those kind of explosive gains, if you will. And so, for as good as the offense looked at the beginning of the season, I think it was kind of floated by their red zone efficiency and Aaron Rodgers completing some of those, red zone touchdown passes. He was on pace at one point for about 40 touchdowns. Now that's down at like 34 or 35, still on a decent pace, but it's showing signs of slowing down. And for that reason, I do have at least some worry. I did want to circle back to the Roman Wilson thing. I think you wrote that up today on Arthur Smith, if you want to talk about that.
Yeah, Arthur Smith said that Roman Wilson slowly but surely starting to make more plays and starting to show signs of his role increasing. He had another okay game against the Chargers. He only had 2 catches, but 35 yards and a touchdown. The touchdown came on the same concept on the play that Calvin Austin let the ball kind of bounce off his hands for the interception. And obviously 2 games ago, he had the breakout game against Green Bay. And he's gotten pretty even because he had the fumble against the Colts, and Mike Tomlin, said it was a boneheaded play. But within that, he even praised Roman Wilson a little bit. Aaron Rodgers praised Roman Wilson. Now Arthur Smith is praising Roman Wilson. So you kind of have, the 3 big decision makers on offense kind of hinting that Roman Wilson's earning himself more of a role. And yesterday, Aaron Rodgers challenged the receivers to kind of get open and do a better job of getting open. And if Roman Wilson can kind of be that guy that, Rodgers seems to think he could be, and Arthur Smith seems to think he can be and be a reliable weapon, his role is going to increase. And that, the Steelers just don't have a consistent, second receiving threat behind DK Metcalf. And even DK Metcalf hasn't been consistent, but a lot of that is because, he's getting double teamed on third downs. Teams are really keying in on him because they don't have to key in on another one of their pass catchers right now. Calvin Austin's had some good games, but he hasn't been consistent. If Roman Wilson can be consistent, then I think there's some hope for this offense. If he gets an increased role, then maybe that happens. Maybe Rodgers looks his way more. Both of his touchdowns have came in garbage time, but he's put the ball in the end zone. So you would like to think that Rodgers is maybe going to turn to him a little bit more, and maybe he can be a guy that kind of breaks out a little bit in the second half to help turn this offense around.
Yeah, you'd hope so. And I have to correct myself. I said that the cavalry isn't coming, but Scotty Miller should be returning soon to the offense. And Marquez Valdes-Scantling, who knows what he could be as well. He's on the practice squad. I say that kind of in jest and kind of because, well, like they do need some kind of change. So hopefully, I don't know if they can deploy these guys in a way that really makes a difference. Valdes-Scantling is one that's at least somewhat interesting just because of his history with Rodgers. And, he's kind of a deep threat. And like I said earlier, the Steelers really haven't been great at the deep ball this season. And so maybe there's some kind of connection there. And if they start hitting on the deep threat, then, maybe safeties aren't able to cheat over to Metcalf as much, and then maybe that opens up things for him more, either deep or underneath or whatever it might be. So, I guess there is a potential for some cavalry, if you will, to come, but not anything that most people would deem significant. And, certainly there's a debate whether or not either of those guys will make a big impact. I think, is if you had to guess over or under Mike Williams' production for Marquez Valdes-Scantling over the final, I guess, 8 games are left. Would you say over or under? And I'll pull up, I don't know if you have Mike Williams' stats memorized from last year.
I do not. I do not. I'm pulling them up right now.
He had 9 receptions for 132 yards and a touchdown. So not a very high bar, but I think we had higher expectations for Williams, to be fair.
That's an interesting one because I don't really think Marquez Valdes-Scantling is going to be a huge difference maker. But if he does get elevated and he has the chemistry with Rodgers, he's a deep ball burner. I mean, he led the league in yards per reception a couple of times. And he kind of still has that. I mean, Mike Williams' body was pretty much broken down by the time he got to Pittsburgh. He wasn't as much of a deep threat as he had been earlier in his career. So I do think there could be, a game or two where Marquez Valdes-Scantling, they can hit him on a home run if he gets elevated. So I'm gonna go with over. I expected to say under, but I mean 9 for 132. If MVS has a game where he has 5 for 90, or
Right.
then he all he has I think he can do more than Mike Williams did. I mean, I don't. Again, it's a very low bar to clear. I'm not saying that Marquez Valdes-Scantling is going to change the tenor of this offense whatsoever, but I do think if they give him a chance, he could surpass Mike Williams' production. I think he probably would if he gets a chance. It's weird because I mean, Arthur Smith and Mike Tomlin basically refuse to acknowledge him, just lump him in with those guys on the practice squad. So it doesn't seem like there's a lot of a lot of love for MVS in the building. I mean, Tomlin did say, there's a chance he gets elevated this week, and I mean, I think why not? I mean, you could elevate Asante Samuel Jr. too. We'll talk about that later, but I mean, I don't really see who else you're going to elevate this week. I mean, I would think you would probably add a corner at some point if Slay's out because you legitimately have no backup cornerbacks. But yeah, I mean, you get 2 elevations. Why not give him a chance? Why not see what he can do? And I mean, his familiarity with Rodgers, if you want to get Rodgers going, give him a guy that he's said is one of his favorite teammates of all time. So I would like to see that. And if he does play, I do think that over the course of the season, he will surpass Mike Williams' production.
That's fair. I think, yeah, you elevate Valdes-Scantling, you might, not give Keyshawn Williams a helmet because of his muff punt situation, and they already talked about Calvin Austin III potentially, taking that punt return role back, and I think they've got some guys they can figure out for kick return as well. So that's a possibility there to kind of get him a helmet on Sunday. And yeah, I mean, I don't know. You say 5. What if he has a game that's 5 yards for 90? It's certainly possible if they hit one big play, like a 45-yard play, then you're well on your way already. But to go back to my Doomer thing, I mean, DK Metcalf, how many times did you guess he's had 5 receptions or more this season? Actually, okay, how many times did you guess he's had more than 5 receptions this season?
Once or twice.
The answer is 0.
Okay, yeah, I mean he's like a 4 reception merchant. It's like 3 or 4 receptions or 2, I guess, because he only had 2 against the Colts. I think he only had he had 3 against the Chargers. So yeah, I mean that's not, yeah, I mean that's a little bit surprising, but I guess it's not totally shocking.
Yeah, he's had 5 2 different times, and one of those resulted in 55 yards. One of those resulted in 126. He's only had over 90 yards twice. So, I guess it is possible that Valdes-Scantling break off a deep pass or two in a game, and you're right there. But man, yeah, I don't even know if I had fully realized that until I just looked. So that's pretty crazy. I think we all knew that Metcalf is underutilized, but wow, he's not even in the top 50 for targets at this point, which is wild considering he's the fourth highest paid receiver in football and all the expectations for him. Obviously, we've contextualized that throughout the day with the double coverage and stuff. And, he's not a guy that you can just toss it up to and hope that he's going to make these acrobatic George Pickens like plays. So this is a guy that you do need to kind of get open, if you will. And it's hard to do that when you got a safety over top a lot of the time. So, all right, we're going to transition here into the Bengals preview. And I guess a good way to do that is asking the question, is this Bengals defense the perfect remedy to kind of kickstart this offense, if you will?
I absolutely think so. I mean, this Bengals defense is really, really bad. Trey Hendrickson's doubtful. He didn't practice yesterday. Shamar Stewart, not that he's done much of anything, but he's probably not going to play either on Sunday. I mean, we saw when they played the Bengals the first time, Aaron Rodgers literally had all day to throw in the pocket. I think that's going to help matters. And the Bengals have missed an alarming amount of tackles the last few weeks, so much so that Chase Brown used some choice words after their last game to talk about their defense and not being able to make a tackle. So yeah, I mean, I think this is the right time. I mean, yes, it's a bad defense, but if you get going and you get clicking, then maybe you have some momentum. I mean, then they're going against the Bears the week after. The Bears defense isn't anything special either. So you get back-to-back defenses where there's a chance to turn the offense around and maybe build some momentum. So I do think this is perfect timing to go up against Cincinnati again, and they also have the benefit of familiarity. I mean, DK Metcalf is already saying he wants to go up against DJ Turner again. Like he's relishing that matchup, which I mean, it goes both ways, but I do like that the Steelers seem to want to, take advantage against this weak Cincinnati defense.
Yeah, the only thing, if DJ Turner, he proved pretty capable of taking Metcalf out of the game last time.
He did.
That was a 3 reception, 50-yard game for him, which I mean,
And he had to rip the ball away on that interception because Metcalf's contested catch is not nearly as good as it should be for somebody of his size.
right, exactly. Yeah, that was a crazy play. Yeah, so this is a defense that, all right, if they're able to take away Metcalf, and we're kind of in the same situation, who's going to step up and beat him? And last week the answer was nobody, and so you kind of have to hope that Rodgers is on. If Rodgers isn't on, how are you going to keep up with this Joe Flacco-led offense that, I mean, is there a huge difference between what Flacco's doing and what Burrow was doing at the beginning of the year? I don't really know. I think Flacco's been playing lights out. So kind of proving Tomlin's point. What the heck were the Browns thinking?
I mean, it helps when you have T. Higgins and Jamar Chase, but he's taking advantage of it. His timing with them has been great. I'm not looking forward to having to for this defense to have to face Joe Flacco again.
No, absolutely not. Um, well, probably a good time to talk about Asante Samuel, as we haven't figured a place to shoehorn that in here in the show. But the Steelers did sign him to the practice squad for now. This is a guy who, for his first 3 and a few games, so 3 1/4 seasons or whatever it was playing very well. I think he was like tied for sixth or seventh in the league in passes defensed over his first 3 seasons from, what was that, 2021 to 2023. And he was tied with Darius Slay over that period. And so while Slay was still playing well, not the Slay that we're seeing now, but back when Slay was still big play Slay, he was kind of matching him in passes defense. Now he's not a great tackler. I think that's kind of been well covered this week. He's one of those guys who's going to probably miss a lot of tackles, and the Steelers don't love that. They already have tackling issues as is, but this is a guy who can, hopefully add some much needed coverage skills to the secondary. And I think we said it earlier, but keep Ramsey at safety, which seems to be the recipe right now for success.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I'm curious to see if he gets a hat this week because he said he was cleared for football activity in October. So health isn't necessarily an issue, but he hasn't played since week 4 last year, so rust might be an issue. I mean, he just practiced with them for the first time yesterday. I would be a little bit surprised if he was the elevation, but if he looks good in practice, then I mean, why not? I mean, he's played well at a high level before, and I mean, obviously he's been working out, even though he hasn't been, in a team setting necessarily on the field. So, uh, I do think he can be a guy that can, definitely help this team down the stretch. I mean, especially with their lack of depth. Um, but given what that Slay is basically cooked at this point in his career, he's a bad tackler, and he struggles to keep up with anybody with a hint of speed and coverage. I do think Samuel can kind of come in and be a guy and play a decent role, at least down the line.
And he's more of an outside corner, so this isn't a guy who's going to fix, the Brandon Eccles issues in the slot last week. That's kind of what it is. Eccles is just going to have to improve, and I think he can. I mean, we saw at the beginning of the game he made some solid plays, and we've seen some good play from him this year. It's just a matter of he wasn't looking at the right spot some of the time. I think he kind of got caught looking back at the quarterback when he needs to keep his eyes on who he's covering, and so just some discipline issues there, getting a little ahead of himself, and it led to some big plays. So anyway, Samuel more of an outside guy. So yeah, any way you cut it, a good signing. I don't know when he'll contribute. That spinal fusion thing, it seems like he's healthy. Sounds like I think he said he's more healthy than he's ever been because that spine issue is something that's been bugging him since he entered the NFL, apparently. That surgery was done by Steelers doctors, so there's some inside information there, if you will. And yeah, I think this is a guy who, if it's not this week, certainly next week, will be playing a good amount of snaps. So look forward to seeing that. You went through some of the Bengals injuries already. Shamar Stewart, I just want to call him out for just a moment, just because at the Senior Bowl, he told me he was going to be the Defensive Rookie of the Year, and I feel lied to at this point because I guess I shouldn't have trusted the guy that had like 4.5 sacks through his whole college career. But anyway.
He has 6 tackles this year.
Hey, to be fair, the Defensive Rookie of the Year is wide open. I mean, Carson Schweschinger with the Browns is kind of just going to win it by default. I think he's had a good year, but
he's hurt too. He's going to miss the next few weeks, and he still might find a way to win it.
I think after him, it's Nick Manwari. He also missed some time. Derek Harmon is, I think he received a vote in the recent survey that I forget who did. I think it was SI.com did a survey, and Harmon was in a 6-7 way tie for 4th place on that thing. So if that tells you anything, the Defensive Player, the Rookie of the Year race is wide open. But still, I don't think Shamar Stewart's going to be winning that thing unless he goes on a complete tear over the end of the season. Anything else to discuss with the Bengals? Did we go over the Steelers injury report? Do you have that pulled up, Joe?
Not, I can pull that up real quick. I know that Broderick Jones was out yesterday. And they had he had a groin injury and did not practice, so that's something to monitor. Mike Tomlin didn't mention it earlier in the week. Alex Highsmith didn't practice with a pec injury. That was the other kind of unexpected guy who popped up. Cole Holcomb, who's dealing with some sort of severe illness, did not practice. Samalo did get back on the field. He was limited. Darius Slay remains in concussion protocol, did not practice. And everybody else was pretty much rest outside of Corey Trish Jr., who has a knee injury and will not be playing for the Steelers this year, given the fact that he got 1 day of practice in, and I think his 21-day window closes fairly soon and does not seem like it will be opened. Scotty Miller was full and Jabril Peppers was full. Peppers is kind of big because it's a special teamer. He gives them some more depth in the secondary. So good to see him getting back healthy. And yeah, that's pretty much it for their injury report.
Trice due by the 19th, so next Wednesday is his decision, and not looking good for him. Will Howard just got activated, so he's back as the emergency 3rd quarterback, most likely there. And, hopefully, I don't think we're going to see him this season. Hopefully not. Things would probably have to go quite wrong for that to be the case, but good that he's able to practice. And, I think John Gruden this morning re-injected some Howard hype into the Steelers fan base on 93.7 The Fan, saying, can't believe the Steelers got him in the 6th round. And I forget exact wording, but basically saying it's only a matter of time before this guy's a starter in the league, et cetera, et cetera. So, yeah, I think we've talked about that a lot. We'll wait and see with him, but good that he's back around. I think that is all for our show today. We do have a listener question that we'll go through right now. If you want to have that answered your question answered on a future episode, that's 412-254-3145. If I spoke too fast, that's in the show notes at the bottom of the screen in the video section here as well. 412-254-3145. This one is from Joe.
Hey, Depot Dive. This is Joe calling about the Steelers defense. My question would be, do you think the Steelers defense is better suited to play zone or man? And do you think the NFL in the modern era is better suited to play zone or man defense? And how could the Steelers defense improve in the secondary in terms of that? Thanks again. Love what you guys do.
Thank you, Joe. I don't think I recognize your voice, but if you did call in the past, sorry about that. But we appreciate your question. Absolutely. Talking about the Steelers' defense and zone defense versus man defense, and which they're better suited for. Joe, I'll give you the first thoughts.
Yeah, I mean, before the season, I think Mike Tomlin talked about how they thought this team would be able to play a lot of man coverage, and that would be a benefit for them. But it's tough because Darius Slay doesn't have the speed to keep up with a lot of these receivers in man, but Joey Porter Jr. gets lost so often in zone coverage. So you have a deficiency no matter what way you put it. I mean, I would trend towards playing zone, but just because with the way their roster is built right now, I would think that they could be a better zone team than man team given their just lack of speed in the secondary. It's tough to play man when you can't keep up with some of these receivers. But yeah, it's tough because, I mean, you don't have, right now the exact personnel to do either of those things, particularly to the level that you'd want to do it. So it's kind of tough.
Yeah, I think if Asante Samuel Jr. gets in the mix, then I would say maybe a little bit more towards man again, just because you're able to have Porter and Samuel matched up, and I think that's a little bit better suited. But with Slay and with some of the, experienced, I think being able to keep your eyes on the quarterback in zone is kind of beneficial for some of these guys who have been playing the game for a while. And, it's hard to answer this with a kind of a yes or no binary answer because it's super matchup dependent. If teams are going to try and go quick on you, you have to try and play some man or some press to kind of slow them down. And that's something the Steelers, obviously struggled with every offense going quick time to throw on them. So, but I have some hope that with Asante Samuel, they actually might be able to switch to maybe more of a man type of situation, which is going to give the pass rush more time to get home and might make the defense look a whole lot better. But it's already starting to look better as it is with Ramsey and Duggar at safety. So kind of a non-answer for you, but hopefully at least a little bit of insight. And Joe, anything else to add before we wrap up?
No.
All right, well, that is our show today. Steelers are playing the Cincinnati Bengals at 1 o'clock on Sunday. That is at home this time, so hopefully we're talking about a Steelers team that has widened the AFC North lead and is not tied with the Ravens at that point. But we will catch you guys next Thursday. I'm Ross. That's Joe. We'll see you next time.